Well, I'd like to thank our amazing technician for saving our panel as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for helping us. And thank you all for coming today. Aloha kako, everyone, and welcome to the Manawa Slate reveal and AAPI filmmakers discussion. And so today we got some awesome people to talk to, our panelists here, and thank you all for attending. So just a brief breakdown of what we're going to talk about today. We have an amazing statement from the Maui County Film Commission about our projects completed in the past year post-COVID. We're going to talk about our panelists here, their contributions to the Hawaii filmmaking industry, and specifically their role in helping Maui shine in Hollywood. And then we will happily reveal our Phase 1 slate for Maui production for 2022. All right, so first thing is our film commissioner, Tracy Bennett, couldn't be here today because he's there for a million different movies, but a few things that he wanted to share with us, and this will be up later online for you guys to check out, but really just to give you an idea of what Maui brings to the table compared to most other places in the Hollywood game is that we offer a unique environment that not many people can duplicate. We offer a workforce that I will have to say works harder than anybody else in Hollywood right now, and willing to do it for pennies to make it all possible. So we were very lucky this year after the COVID pandemic to go back to work as early as last December, and we were happy to premiere with a little film called $1 Million that brought most of this team together. And if it wasn't for that movie and everything behind it, we probably wouldn't be here today. So after $1 million, we were lucky to have the eye of HBO, a few Amazon original series, and we were able to make it possible for even the likes of Bruce Willis and John Travolta to get back on screen together post-COVID and help produce Paradise City, a great action romp that happily and successfully uses more than 80% local Hawaiian cast, save for, you know, Mr. Die Hard himself. And then we went on to do 2 Lifetime films this year, and even a crazy man-eating shark movie, for as insane as that was, and episodes of Temptation Island, which Brad has been on, actually Austin too, right?
Yeah. No.
He's like, no. I don't like crazy. And then we were just lucky to wrap The Retreat, a soon-to-be Lifetime picture directed by Brian Hertzlinger, and assistant directed by that guy. And
fabulous.
That guy, Kevin Roy, everyone.
Kevin, can you stand up, please? You got a new haircut, ladies and gentlemen. We're very proud.
But since we're already behind on time, enough about like all the exploits. Let's talk about these people right here. So, I myself, Kawika Hoke, nice to meet you all. Executive producer and unit production manager for our slate for next year, and this has truly been the greatest opportunity to go on this adventure with these folks. And I'm proud to say that as I introduce each of these people, like I hold them in the highest regard, and I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for them. So first and foremost, Brad, our co-producer and director.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having us.
Austin, our director of photography and lead editor.
Hello.
And then Gabriella Galindo, our co-producer, co-writer, and key hair and makeup. Kalani Edwards, writer, producer, and chief lighting technician. And Keli'ikoa Miller, co-producer, art department, production designer. The man who can make any little budget stretch as far as possible and make every shot look beautiful in the background. So before we continue on to our slate, we'd love to talk about what these folks do, how they play their part in the industry. If anybody has any questions about filmmaking in general, we'd like to appeal to those who are looking for industry knowledge, because we know all you may not be here just for, you know, cool Pan-Asian content. But Brad, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about a little bit what you've done over the past year, getting us back from COVID?
I certainly would. But before I do that, Kawika, on behalf of myself, our team, the entire filmmaking community of Maui, we want to thank you, because without this guy working tirelessly 24 hours a day, beyond 24 hours a day, we wouldn't even be here. So I want to take the opportunity to say in front of you all, this guy is indispensable to us. We love him, and this comes from the mayor, and this also comes from Terry. 100%. What was your name again? You guys know how Hollywood works. I don't know what it is. You know, we shared a flight together. And my name is Brad Starks. My background is in fashion, photography, and advertising. I've been lucky enough to have my work published in some of the top fashion magazines in the world. Once the recession hit, it came time to actually get kind of creative because photography rates went down. I'm sure a lot of you freelancers sort of like out there who create your own content understand and know what that is. I was lucky enough to not only find a home in Maui, but then to also meet a lot of these great people here on the panel. One of the outbreak stories that really sort of pushed me into the industry, besides getting the chance to sort of work with a lot of our premier mentors, like, I'm trying to remember them right now. Branscombe Richmond, Brian Herzlinger, this guy sitting over here, Kevin, I mean, he's very, very humble, but I've learned so much about filmmaking from him. Love you, Kevin. Also, Austin, who's one of our breakout stars. Austin and I became friends through a workshop. I sensed extraordinary filmmaking skills in him, and we partnered together on a short documentary, which won an award. That was like our first effort. But let me sort of pass things on to him, and tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I actually started working with cameras ever since middle school. I was in band, and then my 8th grade year, they had a brand new media program pop up, and then I wasn't really interested in band because my brother was into it. So I was like, I'll go give media a try. And sure enough, you know, we did a bunch of PSAs, like commercials and stuff, and competitions, and then I just stuck with it. Throughout high school, I did just kept up with media, and then I actually started from the bottom. So I went from like PA, then camera assistant, then I went into operating camera through commercials, branding, and even music videos for local artists. And I just loved it so much. Most of the time I was just, you know, doing my own thing, one-man band, because Maui is so small. And then when I met Brad and the whole community, it just, like, it snapped, you know, like it clicked. I mean, it clicked. You know, I just love working with these guys. I think Maui is such a beautiful place to shoot at, and the reason why I want this, or I'm a part of this and I want this to work, is because a lot of the times, if you're ever from Hawaii, or if you're ever from someone small, or like, you know, Maui, there's not enough opportunity, and a lot of people, they move to the mainland or they move to LA and try to find work over there without, you know, cultivating a community from where they're at. And I think that's what's important, is try to create, you know, like a groundwork or foundation so that others, you know, before us can also have an easier or greater time creating stuff like this instead of moving to somewhere else. So that's why I'm here. And I think, Gabby, would you like to take it from here?
Say a few words. So I started in film when I was 15 years old. And I started with a huge lie. I would never tell people how old I was on set. I just packed on the makeup and looked as old as possible and just faked it until I made it. Because I was so afraid of anyone finding out that there was a teenager on set and that she wouldn't be taken seriously anymore. And that was a huge part of like the ageism that I had to break through in being taken seriously and working my way up for people to listen to what I have to say. And my main focus right now is trying to change the perspective in what the mainstream media and dominating culture has seen as normalcy for film. And I really want to push more people of different ethnicities being in film, women having a stronger voice and not falling into this role that we've been pushed into for centuries and centuries, and that's my main focus and what I bring. And I also do hair and makeup. So I'll pass it over to Kalani here.
Where do I start? So I mean, this is the only thing I've ever wanted to do for my entire life. So through trial and tribulation, through high school, and I went to the military, ended up going to film school, and ended up fulfilling all the things and meeting all these wonderful people. It's been a ride. It's been a ride, and one of the biggest things that I want to accomplish, especially with this group, is bringing Native and Indigenous pictures to the forefront. Finally, creating a narrative that will aid us in our future endeavors in the storytelling. There's a wealth of knowledge that nobody's even tapped into yet. We're talking about tens of thousands of years worth of storytelling and heartfelt, just through and through. You guys are going to be really impressed with a lot of stuff. With that, I'm not gonna go through too much of my accolades. I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Mandalorian.
Space Jam.
Mandalorian.
What's Kanye like on set, bro?
Hi everyone, I'm Keli'ikoa Miller. I've been doing art department since 2011. Done almost every role, build sets, make props, make the vision happen for the director and the writer. And that's what I love to do, build their vision. And that's what I want to pass on to future Hawaiian generations, future people who want to get into art department, want to understand art department. Because it's its own little amalgamation of many different qualities and abilities that people bring. But it's the most beautiful thing that I can be a part of. Love being able to create and build visions.
All right, so before we go into the next phase, does anybody have any industry questions for our panel before we talk about our content? Anyone interested? Hands, anyone? Anyone? Bueller? No? All right, cool. Since we lost time anyways, this works out perfectly. So on to the next part. I'm hoping you guys don't ask any questions now. No, just kidding. You can ask any questions you want. All right, so we are lucky to say that Maui is a very talented and just phenomenal place where content can come from so long as it has the right help. And in cooperation with the Maui County Mayor's Office, the Maui County Film Commission, and the State Film Commission, Hawaii is looking to have a nearly $2 billion 5-year program for filmmaking. And we're lucky enough to say that we're a part of that program on Maui. And so with that, we'd like to introduce you to some of our content that will be coming out. So we have a lot to talk about, but we only have trailers and sizzles for 2 of them because we only have so much time. So, it's a little small there. But, so I think we're the best place to start. I think I'd like to hand things back to Kalani as we talk about, let's talk about like Hawaiian history related through TV and screen. So we'll talk about wall rats and the lesser Hawaiian gods first. Kalani, what is this and where does it come from?
All right. So this is a brainchild of film school, and it's been expounded upon and refined for years and years. And really, what it is the juxtaposition of our culture, Hawaiian culture, versus popularization of culture, as far as the Elvises and the time that came before. It wasn't even before, but in the 60s to the 70s, basically went through a huge time where things were uncertain. Things we really didn't know what was going on concerning our culture. We just got it back. We actually ended up getting Hawaiian culture back in 1974. So within that, trying to explore the juxtaposition of our culture versus what people think that, when they come to Hawaii, when they go to Waikiki, anything else like that, these beautiful beaches, there's history that's been there for hundreds and hundreds of years that that permeates through us, and it's I don't even know where to go with it. It's a huge undertaking as far as trying to convey who we are as people, where we add up in the culture of things, where we are In terms of America, it's in development, and we have a lot of this stuff under wraps, so I'm having a hard time.
How do you push forward your like the Hawaiian culture and Mana, and like without making it hard to like caricature like tiny bubbles and you know, like you want to like there's a huge appetite, at least like even here in local in San Diego, for Pacific Island history, like night marchers, like you know, there's a lot of stories that are rich, but at the same time, you know, you don't want it to be like
Give some of our secrets away.
Dole Whip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very commercialized.
Yeah.
So how do you sell that to the people who make the movie?
I think that all we can do as filmmakers is write the truest sense of what we know, and even then, a lot of us me speaking specifically about myself, didn't grow up in the culture until I had very strong ties to my family back home, but didn't get a formal education in Hawaii until I was probably about 15, 16 years old. So within that, I think, first and foremost, I think it's a huge, huge thing to reference our kapuna, to go into our communities, because Hawaiian culture in and of itself is not a single faceted thing. It's, you know, most of these are all oral traditions that have been held for hundreds of years that I don't think one person in particular has the right to necessarily tell. So within that, it's opening up to a greater conversation. It's not being, you know, cheesy or corny with it, trying to really get to the heart of what we're trying, spiritualism in Hawaii, and trying to convey magic, or the way that we see it in that sense, I think is the biggest part of what's going to shine through in those projects. Thank you for the question.
I personally think on that matter, as an answer to your question, a lot of it falls on the producers in the industry. So until there's enough Hawaiian producers that can say, yeah, bro, go tell your story. Like, we'll back you 100%. Because what we're facing in a lot of cases, like, fine example, how many of you saw Finding Ohana on Netflix? How many of you guys loved it? And how many guys wish there'd be another Finding Ohana? Well, I can neither confirm nor deny that that's not going to happen. But what we run into is a lot of people above the line are not of our culture, not of our experience. Western storytelling is wholly different than that of the Pacific and the East. So the things that we find pertinent to us, you know, platonic love, aloha, you know, all the things that we keep sacred in our community, our vision is told wholly different. You know, it's like breaking into the industry just like Korean film did, and saying, hey, there's a different way to tell a love story. There's a different way to tell any of these stories. And we have to respect that some people connect the dots differently. And it's consumable, even though you don't think as a Westerner it might be consumable, but to the culture that has seen these stories told to them this way for so many years, that it's, you know, it behooves you to give it a chance and then see maybe, oh, maybe there's a different way to tell a story. So the one thing that I can tell any kid who wants to tell stories of their own people is learn the office, become a production coordinator, become a producer, become a supervisor, because once you learn the bureaucracy, kids, they can't stop you. So learn how to cut that red tape on your own.
Definitely keeping the narrative within people of the culture is number one, I feel like.
So with that, I think we'll just go around all the ones that are not, we don't have sizzles for. So Kahokui is in early development and tells a story of two brothers separated at birth, raised Hanai one, and the one raised with the mother and stepfather. And these kids come together after their stepfather and their grandfather go missing through a mysterious and fantastical happenstance. And they find that they are sitting on the membrane of the universe where the gods have been waiting for over 1,000 years to come back. And so it's a little bit of Hawaiian American Gods meets a little bit more of a PG experience for all ages. And it's definitely a trip down the rabbit hole of what it means to be Hawaiian on the mainland versus Hawaiian on the island, and those inconsistencies that you see with your own brothers and sisters, but then you try to accept each other and push through all the colonial problems that are both faced upon you. Our next one, actually, Alex, I think Brad could give us a little point of view on it, because he's been working with John Milkidze on this, our other co-writer. Driftwood.
Yeah. Yeah. So Driftwood is a look at the story of a young hero who finds himself homeless. There is a family that he discovers and learns about and joins on the street. It's going to be a deep diving dive into a story that cuts through I think, a lot of the stereotypes that are unfortunately out there about how people become homeless and sort of like who they are. This is something that is a big problem, I think, nationwide. Everywhere. I mean, like walking around here, we sort of, observed and have seen sort of how that devastates lives. So it's a universal story that's going to also be told in the islands. And yeah, Jonathan Melkidze is just a very talented writer who you guys are going to hear a lot about the next time that we're here.
Absolutely. And then just to speed things up on these last three so we can get straight to Gabby, Kahale tells the story of Kahale Smith on Kauai. For those of you who don't know, there was a man who faced a lot of hardship during the era of new taxation on the Hawaiian people. Many people who had land that their family had been given by the kingdom for generations were then told one day that they had to start paying taxes because it was American land now. Kahale Smith didn't believe in that. He was actually most notably known for chaining himself to his house. The man was nearly 400 pounds and he used a tow chain to chain himself to his house, and he's like, try to take me. He then was sadly caught in fire in his house before he could defend his house or decide how to handle it. The happenstance of that is still unknown to this day, but many believe that Kahale wouldn't have burned his own house down. But that's a much deeper story that we don't have time for, but I really wanted people to be aware of that because that's definitely the song of my grandparents' generation, and I love that to be told, and it's very near and dear to me. Kapena is a hard-boiled sheriff. Brucey Kapena is a hard-boiled sheriff from the upcountry, and in a new era, Maui is facing a lot of modern problems that we haven't seen. Meth, just heavy drug usage, kids falling out of the school system, and so Kapena shows up as a man who's been given a mantle that has stretched generations in his family. And even though he's reaching the end of his line, he recognizes that there's a whole nother lifetime's worth of work to do to save the upcountry and the people of Maui from skin trade, methamphetamines. It's very Breaking Bad meets Longmire. And the big one to culminate at the end is Rough Riders. You can't really see the name there at the bottom, but we intend on going through a historical fiction romp at the end of a very long historical romp. We feel it's a great way to just break everybody out of the reality and go through and imagine a World War II universe of a clandestine unit made up of Polynesians, Pan-Asians, and Dominicans that are specifically in battle with the chattel slavery trade of the Pacific, which not many people were aware of even in current history. But since we don't have much time, let's move on to Gabby and talk about Taste for Love. We're currently in writing with that. We've been shooting our script back and forth. We've almost got our cast here. We're hoping to cast by January.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's the goal. So Taste for Love is my story of a woman in Hawaii who's holding her family food truck together. And she's definitely the backbone of her entire family, and it's a romantic story of having this opportunity of love being presented to her, and she's denying it. It's not your typical romantic comedy because she denies love. She doesn't necessarily want it. She's trying to hold her family as the priority right now. And it's about his pursuit to kind of break those walls down in her. And she's just giving him a real run for his money. It's not your typical love story. I won't do that. I can't put females in that role anymore. We've been in that role for way too long, and it's time to evolve.
Awesome. Well, if that's something you've got to say about that. Let's move on to what brought us here. So on a crazy idea, we challenged ourselves to create an intellectual property that the world could recognize under a story that's safe enough to start with. It goes back to how do you get indigenous stories out. Sometimes you got to make a safe picture, kids. We can't just like come out chanting the streets. We'd love to, but so with that, a humble way to tell a story of the island of Maui. Not many people know this, but there is a secret rally racing scene in Maui that I managed to happen upon through one of our grip and electric guys. And it led us to creating a trilogy that's going to be the backbone of our slate from 2022 all the way up to 2025. And so with that, we have a little sample of what's to come for Ohana Racers. And
We get the lights?
yeah, if someone could get the lights, that'd be amazing. We just get that.
We got a guy.
That warning.
There's a guy.
We did. There's a guy for that.
I can't help it, Papa. I get this feeling inside me like I'm meant to fly. I don't think he wants me behind the wheel.
Legend has it we could be legends, etched in the stone, forever on thrones. Histories made in the moments. Heroes collide, it's all on the line with our backs against the wall. We came to fight. We came to take what was meant to be ours. There's no place to hide. Yeah, it's written all over the stars. Nothing will stop us against all the odds, but just like we promised, we came to find a yeah.
Just remember, wherever you go, no matter how fast, I'll be right behind you, all the way to the finish line.
So Ohana Racers follows the story of Patricia Kaluhane as she aims to get her license at 16 and join the craziest rally racing circuit that the world has ever seen. It's a little bit Herbie the Love Bug meets a little bit of Harry Potter in the form of racing teams, and it serves as a great vessel for opening the conversation. You know, a lot of, and I'll tell this to kids who write, who want to be writers one day, who have this passion project that like you feel that the world has to hear your message. The safest way to get to that is find yourself something that is going to start that conversation. And we feel that after finding Ohana, what's the conversation? And we feel that sneaking into the day-to-day life of just simple upcountry people and seeing those little things, that the bargains they make to have the future that they want, the things that they do to provide for their children and survive in this day and age. And we definitely feel that this movie will tell that story and then develop into a strong extended universe for you know, just young kids in general to have peers to look at that are telling stories and participating in things that are great and a wholesome conversation for not only Hawaii but all of America.
I would also say that one of the important things that we're looking to address as storytellers is to champion the idea of young female women of color. Finding Ohana was a great film in that this young female was celebrated and was smart and was funny, and we need to see more of that. So this is definitely going to be our contribution to that push.
And then since I got the sign that we're running out of time, we're going to skip past this next question, Spark, and we're going to go We're gonna straight to the big one here.
Here we go.
This is technically, even though Ohana Racers is kind of what built this, this was the secret meeting that we had after like sleepless nights working on our first set together. So it was already a plan before I met Kalani, and that was the thing. And then I was lucky enough to best boy underneath him in a film, and it just, you know, after long days of pushing gear and hanging lights together, it was like, hey bro, what kind of stories you got? And he's like, oh, well, I kind of want to tell a story to Duke Hanamoku. And we happen to know a guy that, Teherani, oh my God, he looks like he could just be the living embodiment of Duke.
Yeah.
So what brought about Duke for you?
Was trying to find an iconoclast within our culture. It was, you know, trying to find that Muhammad Ali, trying to find that person that defined us to a point where that's kind of where everything started. This guy started everything. I mean, he was in the 1920s, was one of the first people, representative of people of color, especially Native Hawaiians, in the Olympics, won his first gold medal over there. Came back, was a huge proponent of aloha and our culture throughout the entire world. He's the one that actually brought a lot of the bigger people to Hawaii, as far as the Elvises, as far as a lot of the bigger acts that came through. So within that, he actually had a pretty extensive Hollywood career himself, and I always, and especially being in the position that we are now and trying to make films, I personally have always gone back to the thought of, you know, what these people dealt with, especially in a time, because Duke Hanamoku was born actually 3 years before the overthrow of the Hawaiian government, which was then annexed into what it is now, into a state. So growing up and definitely having a foot in both worlds, being of a country, an independent country, and then transitioning into that statehood and trying to still maintain your own culture and still be a positive force for change on top of it. So that's kind of where, I mean, there's nothing that I don't want to explore about that character, the man himself, if you will.
Must have been wonderful being raised on an island paradise, Duke. What was Duke's childhood like, Bernice?
Well, Brother Duke's childhood days were spent in the water and on the beach. But my father taught him how the old-fashioned method to swim when he was only 4 years old.
What was your dad's method of teaching you?
That's a long story.
Yeah.
Well, between the two outriggers, I was splashing all over the place. Save yourself, we'll drown.
Yeah.
20 years, won many gold medals. I've always been curious, Duke, was it more of a thrill for you to win those Olympic Games or ride some of those giant waves at Castle Surf I know you used to ride?
Oh, they're pretty, both quite thrilled, but I think the surfing is much more, to me, the greatest thrill of my life. Is ride one of these big surf with the heavy board, weighs about 114 pounds and about 16 feet long.
All those claps belong to this young man right here. All of our previs, all of our editing, everything rests on the back of this young man, and we are so proud to have him as a part of our hui. Austin, everyone.
This is definitely part of the bigger storyline that we're trying to tell, and this is the beginning to, I guess, if you want to call it our kind of extended universe, because this will go right into Wall Rats. You know, these people interact with each other, so this one will be the beginning. Wall Rats will cover 69 to 74, which was the time in between before when we got our rights back as a people, and then it'll continue on from there, and it'll be able to tell our creation stories and our mythologies and everything that come along with it. So we're very much so looking forward to bringing it up. So all you guys.
Well, I think that's about most of the time we have here. So if any of you like to come up and talk to us while we pack up or meet us out in the hallway, we would love to talk more and spend our time with you. Once again, I'd like to thank my panelists and their amazing contributions to Maui Film. Thank you guys so much. So mahalo for joining us today. Again, we can talk more outside if you'd like to learn how to follow us or anything, but we don't want to be in the way of the next panel because Harry Potter fans are ferocious. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys all so much. This is absolutely hallowed ground for us. You guys are very kind. Thank you.
You're right.
Everybody must have.
Go on, babe.
Thank you.
Julius, don't come closer. Babe, right here. Julius.
I like that. Where'd you go?
I know, but sit here first.
Where's Julius? Sit right here.
Yeah, take the free water so that